This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I guess we might as well get started. We'll see if any more people join late. Ah, David, you're even supporting the cause. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Well, I see Lori and Court on the video side, and we got Tom and David here, and also Bowen. Now, I think everyone knows everyone at this point except for Bowen. So why don't you introduce yourself?
So hello, my name is Bowen Browder. I am a senior out of OIT studying communications, and I joined like just a little under or over a month ago, around that time. But yeah, I'm interested in getting into the entertainment industry and just involving myself however I can. So yeah, I'm here. I like to learn. I like to listen. So I think it's a fun time. I would enjoy talking to all of you.
So maybe we should still do introductions so that, or at least Court and Lori, so that Bowen can get to know you. So Court, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Court. I serve on the board. I hang out with Kurt, uh, and I make films. That's it.
Okay,
Just Owen with a B.
Bowen.
Yeah.
En. Yeah. And Lori, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lori. I've been with Klamath Film for a few years now and was on the board as a general member board for a couple years. I like promoting creative endeavors, and last year I actually created a short film and submitted it into KIF about uh, doing a jigsaw puzzle called The Puzzle and got it into KIF. But yeah, I'm working on a second puzzle short.
The
um,
sequel.
yeah, making a puzzle subgenre in film, short films. Um, but yeah, I more do backstage or tech work. I've also helped out some people with their short films or giving reviews or editing advice. But yeah, I like watching films as well.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
And then Tom and David, Bowen, you already met. Everyone knows me. So we have quite a bit going on with Klamath Film right now while we wait for our guests to join. Our guest tonight is going to be Darrien Gipson, who is the head of SAGIndie, which is different from SAG-AFTRA. So SAG-AFTRA is Screen Actors Guild, and it's a joint union of the film and TV actors and the stage actors. So stage and theater actors are AFTRA, film and TV are SAG. And SAGIndie is a nonprofit that um, helps independent filmmakers connect with a lot of the professional actors that are available through SAG and AFTRA. So it's a very valuable resource for people who have an idea for a film but don't know where to go to try to find an actor or get how to engage that. Um, yeah, so she'll be on later, and she also has the best job in the world because her job basically is to fly all over the world, going to film festivals, and just watching movies and then talking about movies to actors and filmmakers. So darn. Uh, we had we've had a lot of things going on lately. One of which is right there. That is on set of a film called Matterhorn, and Matterhorn was shot at the end of April in Klamath Falls. It is a horror comedy film, a short film that the director Martin Hilligoss grew up in Ashland but now lives in LA. He had two films in the film festival last year, one of which was a second place finish in our Southern Shorts category. His family has a cabin in Lake of the Woods, so he's familiar with Klamath. He's also working on a full-length feature film that he's planning to shoot here in Klamath this fall, and he's in early development of a short film that he wants to shoot that'll mainly be at a fire lookout station, also here in Klamath. So he loves our area. He loves our backdrop. and he's bringing crews from LA up here to make films with us, which is fantastic. So he's hoping to have it done and ready in time where we can possibly world premiere it at this year's Klamath Film Festival in September. So we'll see how that plays out. The exact same time that Matterhorn was filming, we also had This Is Their Land film. This was a bigger production. It's a short film about the Modoc Wars of the 1870s. Um, it was all done by students from Cal State Northridge as their student teachers, and they brought a big crew, about 30 people up from LA, all week long. We stayed in Merrill and here in Klamath, shooting at the lava beds down in Tule Lake, as well as the Ackley Ranch, or the Dry Lake Ranch to the south of City Ranch. We worked with them extensively to line up all sorts of things, everything from lodging and catering to props and costumes and anything else that they needed. A very professional crew, which was great. They had actors that had Broadway stage experience there. They had actors who had been a part of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival there. Uh, one of the producers lives in Eugene, but is a current student at Cal State Northridge, and they were just a wonderful group to work with. So, do you need some space to eat? Yeah. Okay. Uh, so they shot for about 6 days. Both films started shooting the day that we got that big snowstorm, which threw both films for a loop. I know it wasn't much snow, but for people from LA, they had no idea what was going on. They were very confused by the look of snow while they were also trying to film outdoor scenes, and that kind of got thrown for a loop. Thankfully, that This Is Their Land crew, they were able to film in caves the day that it was snowing, and the Matterhorn team was able to just do indoor shoots the day that it was snowing, and it worked out for both films. So both films loved it. I can see we have another person joining. Hello, Joyce. How are you doing?
Am I on? I couldn't tell by my screen. I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. I was just getting started talking about some of the films that were shot here. So,
Okay, I had a little bit of a delay. My cat decided to bite me.
oh, wait, we're kind of talking while getting in our meals here. So, Joyce, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Joyce Dickens. I'm an independent photographer slash acrylic artist here in Klamath Falls. Been here a couple years. Love the area and happy to be here. I'm having a one-person show of my artwork in July, and I will give Kurt all the information so you guys can all show up. It's going to be awesome. Thanks.
Fantastic. Wait, where's it going to be?
Here at Klamath Falls in the community hall at Falcon Heights. That's off
Oh,
of off of Old Midland Road.
mhm.
And it's a gated community, but the gate will be open, and I've reserved the hall for 2 days, July 17th and 18th, from 10 to 4 both days. Have a lot of work to show and a lot of work to do before it shows. So it's going to be an exciting time. So looking forward to it.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your work.
Oh, it'd be great to see you out here, all of you. Just come on out and say hi.
There's our guest. Hello, Darrien.
Hi there.
We were just going through introductions and talking a little bit about some of the films that we just had shot here. So if you want to sit tight for just a minute or two, I'll quickly fly through that, and then we can delve into your area. Yeah?
Sure.
So, Joyce, quick catch up. At the end of April, sorry, I'm kind of staring directly into the sun here. Um, if you want to, David, that'd be great. We had two short films shooting here simultaneously the exact same week, so it made for a bit of a scramble. First one was called Matterhorn, which you can see in our window right there. It was a comedy horror film by director Martin Hilligoss, who was in our film festival last year. He lives in LA. but he loves our area and is planning to shoot a feature-length film here this fall near Crater Lake. And he is also working on a short film about a fire lookout station. They also wants to shoot here in town. Winds are picking up a little bit. Sorry. Hang on to your food. um, and he's working. He told me he's also working on a script for a potential multi-million-dollar feature film about the Modoc Wars of the 1870s that he wants to shoot here.
Oh, cool.
So that's that's one. And at the exact same time they were filming, we also had a shoot for a film called This Is Their Land. This was done by Cal State Northridge college students, shot around the lava beds area as well as south of Tule Lake on the Ackley Dry Lake Ranch. This is a film about, hello? Yep. This is a film about the Modoc Wars of the 1870s, a short film. That was actually their senior thesis, but they had a crew of about 30, had some really high-end professional gear. Art, if you want to pull up a chair, there's some stools over there that you can grab. So really well done set. They're going to world premiere it at a film festival at their college in the spring, and we're hoping that we can have it as part of the 2022 Klamath Independent Film Festival. And Marty is now editing Matterhorn, and he hopes to world premiere it at this September's Klamath Independent Film Festival. So that's kind of what's been going on here. Our deadline for Klamath Independent Film Festival is June 1st. So if anyone is currently working on a film, you've got a couple weeks still to try to get everything wrapped up before our deadline hits. I still need judges to help with going through all of the films, and then we'll have an awards panel at after two different tiers of judges comprised of Hollywood folks. I don't know, maybe I can get Darrien to watch a bunch of stuff because I mean, she watches movies all day anyway. So, um, so quick little reminder here for you before we delve into our featured guest tonight.
You need me to move, Kurt?
It's up to you. I think. Hello, Art. How are you, sir? Yes, you do. You've expired, but that's okay. Hmm. Yeah. For the monitor, yes, they all see it forwards. Okay, so reminder, Climate Independent Film Festival is coming soon, September 17th through the 19th, and we are taking films through June 1st. So we have our special guest here, so we might as well delve right into that. Darrien, hello, good to see you as always. Darrien
Nice to
Gipson.
see you.
Darrien Gipson is the executive director of SAGIndie. And SAGIndie is an organization. It is not SAG-AFTRA, the union for Screen Actors Guild and theater actors, but it has some affiliation. Darrien may have the coolest job in the world. Her job is basically to fly all around the world, going to film festivals and talking to filmmakers and actors. Oh, the winds are picking up here in Klamath. We may get blown away. Bear with us. um, I did check the weather report. It said we were going to be gusting to 34. So we have a very eclectic membership here, Darrien, both here at outside at a local Taphouse as well as online. We have filmmakers, we have actors, we have students, we have people who are just film fans. And every month we bring in someone just to kind of talk about the industry and very casual conversation about whatever people want to delve into and ask questions. Appreciate you being here. So we'll just kind of go for as long as people want, or until you're all talked out. But you can probably explain much better than I can what SAGIndie is. So why don't you detail what exactly the organization does?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Kurt is absolutely right. We are an organization. We are separate from SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union. My job is essentially to help independent filmmakers who have very low budgets learn how to make independent film using professional actors by using SAG-AFTRA's low-budget contracts. So essentially, I am somebody who helps them interpret the contracts so that they can use it for filmmaking. But we are essentially neutral ground. We don't advocate for the union. We simply allow people to understand what's possible, what's not possible, what will cost them money, how much actors really cost. And we just help people go through that process. If that's what they want, then we help them get there. And as Kurt said, I spend most of my time in the before times going to film festivals every week or two. And I sponsored festivals, I do talks at festivals, I hang out with filmmakers and answer questions. And I throw a number of really epic parties at festivals around the country. It's a fun job.
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. Everyone here is jealous of your gig. I guess the first obvious question is how many times a day do you have to explain that SAG-Indie is not SAG-AFTRA?
I explain it a lot and yet not nearly enough because people are always, it doesn't help that I actually sublet my space from SAG-AFTRA because we talk to them quite a lot. So I'm actually in their building. And because I sublet it, my board of directors have an edict that I do this. My email address says SAG-AFTRA. So it's a constant. I'm not SAG-AFTRA, but my email says SAG-AFTRA, and I'm not SAG-AFTRA, but my address is SAG-AFTRA. It's
That's
just a constant.
well. Thank you for being here. I wanted to open it up to questions from some of our filmmakers who are here and some of our actors, but maybe first, since we have a smaller crew here for this month, I think because everyone else is getting blown away Wizard of Oz style right now. Maybe we should go around and do quick little intros for you so that you can get a sense of our organization. Obviously, you know me, um, but some of the other people that are involved with us, as I told you before, we have a very eclectic membership. Everything from students and people who just want to know how to make their Instagram and TikToks look cooler, to professional filmmakers and actors and just film fans. And so, Court, why don't you introduce yourself to Darrien here?
Hi, Darren. I'm Court. I serve on the board, and my background is mostly in scientific filmmaking. And but now I'm playing around with some narrative work and uh, learning new techniques.
Court,
And
I'm sorry, Court, can you define scientific filmmaking?
Yeah, I shot a lot of stuff for my background is in physics and astronomy, so I shot a lot of stuff for high speed stuff or astrophotography, you know, all those things. When you go on YouTube and you see somebody shooting a bullet through an apple and it's shot at 3,000 frames a second, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
Lori, why don't you quickly introduce yourself to Darrien?
Sure. Hi, Darren. I like promoting creative endeavors and whatever medium it is. I'm a artist, I think, in some other mediums than film, but I did make a short film about a puzzle, and a friend of mine sort of described it as a format of stream of consciousness while building a puzzle, bringing order from chaotic pieces and raw thoughts. And I thought that was an interesting way to describe my short film, but it made it into KIF last year. But yeah, low tech, no budget really, besides my time. But a lot of fun. But I help more with other people with their short films, with editing or helping with tech stuff.
Nice to meet you, Lori.
Yeah.
And Joyce?
Hi, Darrien. Nice to meet you. I'm a local Klamath Falls independent photographer. Haven't done any actual filmmaking, but I'm just in awe of the beauty in this area and inspired by nature. And hopefully my work reflects. That's what I do.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you, Joyce.
And
Nice.
David,
Thank you.
sorry, I caught him with a mouthful of food.
David, I was a Navy photographer in the Gulf War, amateur filmmaker, costume collector, actor, prop maker. Been with
Can't hear you guys.
with the group for since the beginning, around 2012.
Yeah, 2012. Sorry, David's a bit of a soft talker. He's a Gulf War veteran, Navy photographer, and sometimes actor.
Very cool.
Cool.
Yep. Art, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Art Belsky, a local dentist, just doing this for fun, former board member.
And I am Lillian Art's wife.
And Tom and Bowen? I may need to turn up the volume on that one.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
so hi, I'm Bowen Browder. I am a student. I'm a college senior finishing up my BS in communications out of Oregon Institute of Technology. I'm here because I love film. I love performance in general. I like the whole practice of it. So I'm here to learn more. I'm here to listen to you and everybody else just to talk and enjoy film as the art form.
Outstanding. Nice to meet you.
And Bowen's an aspiring actor.
Oh, awesome.
And Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Cooley. I've been involved with film as long as I can remember. My dad.
We can't hear him.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Tom is our most veteran filmmaker in
Oh, he's handing me the mic. All right, now I can steal the whole show. Anyway, I've been doing film since I was a little kid because my dad was a cameraman for MGM and 20th Century Fox, so I've been exposed to it since then. Started making my own films in the 1960s. Got involved with the Osmonds, NBC, CBS, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, what is it? Well, so many I've forgotten half of them. I'm an independent little filmmaker now. I just do it for the fun of it because I just love doing films. And you name it, I've probably pretty much done it except for costuming. I can't sew worth beans.
Nice to meet you.
Way to go.
So Darrien, that's our crew tonight. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Why don't we start off by hearing from you how you got into the film industry?
Oh, how far back do you want me to go? I can tell you one story, that is that I made all my important decisions when I was about 12. I decided at that moment that I was going to work in film, and I knew I wanted to work with scripts. I knew I wanted to read screenplays a lot and helped bring them together, but I didn't know what it was called really. I knew I just didn't want to be a director. I didn't want to be an actor. And I just decided I was going to move to Los Angeles. I'm from Northern California. I was going to go to UCLA. I was going to study and become a filmmaker. And I pretty much followed that exactly. I went to UCLA. I studied English literature because I knew I wanted to read a lot, and came out and immediately worked in television, which was not where I wanted to be. But then I went back and got a master's degree in film producing from USC, boo, because I'm a Bruin. And ever since then, I was a development exec for many years. And I developed films and developed a lot of films for a production company that actually never made any of the films. And when they lost their deal and the production company died a sad death, I had to decide what I was going to do. And a weird thing happened along the way is that I actually became very ill and couldn't work for almost 2 years. And when I was finally had to have surgery and I was healed and I knew I was going to be better, I had to say, okay, I need to get a job now. And I should go and get another development job. And then I had to stop and say, but is that really what you want to do? And I love development and I love story, but there were huge parts of that aspect that I did not love. I didn't love that I felt like my job was to hope other people's films didn't do well. The competition of wanting other people to do poorly didn't sit well with me. I also didn't like the fact that as a development exec, my job was to find reasons to say no to people. Like if there's a reason why you shouldn't buy the screenplay, you don't buy it. If there's anything wrong, you say no. And I just decided that I didn't want to be somebody who said no anymore. And that I wanted to be someone who said yes to filmmakers because I actually liked them. And SAGIndie kind of fell in my lap after that. And the whole job at the time was, do you love independent film? Do you love to travel? Do you love nonprofit work? And I just said, this is my job. And I went after it. And, you know, the list of people I had to kill is long, but I got there. And 4 years into it, the person who hired me, who was the head of the company, decided he wanted to go do something different. And he sold me the company. And so I have owned it ever since.
Wow.
And I have 3 people who work for me here in LA, and I have 1 person who works for me in New York. We cover the country, some parts of the world, but mostly just the country. And we just answer our phone and our email, and we answer questions. We are a free service for anyone who has a question about production, about hiring actors, about anything. We all have film degrees. So we are just here to be of service.
That's fantastic. So in amidst all of that of answering questions, you get to go to, let's see here, Sundance,
Yep.
South by Southwest, Cannes, all of the major festivals and some of the smaller ones in between too, right? What's
Yeah,
that
I
dance
guarantee you they're not all can. I go to major festivals, but I make a point to go to regional festivals, and we try very hard to get to as many festivals across the country as humanly possible. So we do not concentrate on LA and New York. We try to keep those at a basic minimum so that we can go other places where creatives are born and living. So we try to hit every state. We still have a few that we haven't gone to yet, but not that many. We've gone to quite a few.
You gone to Alaska?
David was asking if you've been to Alaska.
I have not been to Alaska, though I have flirted with it. But the festival that keeps being presented to me is Alaska in February. And I keep thinking, why do I want to go to Alaska in February? I will say I have been to Alaska because I'm an Air Force brat, and we have been stationed in Alaska before. So I double down on why do I want to go to Alaska in February.
What about Hawaii?
Point.
Well, I'm not crazy, Dave. I've been to Hawaii. You can go there almost any time.
What's the hardest thing about your job?
The hardest thing. Well, okay, it's two-sided because I run a company and I am a creative. So the hardest part about running a company is just paperwork and bureaucracy, of course. But the hard part about being creative is it's an ever-changing industry that, you know, it's like swimming into a fast-running river. You really are never quite sure of the footing. So it takes a lot of our time just trying to stay abreast of everything that's happening on any given day. So we look at what festivals are doing, we look at what filmmakers are doing, we talk to people a lot, we ask a lot of questions, much to a lot of people's chagrin, because we're trying to be as well informed as possible, but it's a bit of it's difficult to stay on top of things to any extent, and we don't claim to be experts at anything. We're learning it right along with everyone else.
Did you hear about our festival last year?
Oh yeah, no, I've talked to Darrien plenty about our festival. I've been in her ear about coming to Klamath this September. So
Yes, he's been luring me up there to see if I'll come and it really, for me, I'm happy to go anywhere where there are good people and creatives. It really is just a matter of my calendar and fitting everybody into the places I need to be. So if I fit it, I'll be there. I expect somebody to like have beer with me and hang out with me.
Bowen here had some questions for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I know it's a little bit it's not exactly what you're doing since you work in SAGIndie and not SAG-AFTRA, but what if you had any, what advice would you give somebody who's interested in joining SAG-AFTRA?
Oh, okay. No, I'm happy to actually tell you this because I think this is actually really important for an actor. Okay, one is you need to get a lot of work, and you're not going to do that by joining SAG-AFTRA at the beginning. So right now, especially while you're in college, audition and volunteer for productions anywhere that you can get so that you can get a reel, so you can get something on the back of your resume. And at some point, God willing, you will get a job that may be on a production that's high enough to make you eligible to join SAG-AFTRA. So, Bowen, I want you to listen to this carefully. Do not join the moment you are eligible. The deal is this. The moment you join SAG-AFTRA, you are now committed to only working on signatory projects. They have to be union projects. Oh. So anything else is going to be off the table for you.
So like nothing independent?
Independent is still union. Oh. Like that's my job, is to tell people how to still be a union production and yet still be low budget. And
nothing outside of that sphere.
Nothing outside of that sphere. So your job is to make sure that the back of your headshot, your resume, has enough material on it that when you go into SAG-AFTRA and become a member, you are essentially going to join an organization that has 160,000 people. So let's say roughly 10,000 of them are going to be young men who look roughly like you or roughly your height, etc. And you need to make sure that when you get into that water, that if you only have 2 things on your resume and they have 20, who's getting the auditions and who's getting the jobs? So you have to make sure that your resume doesn't have to be, 1,000 things. It just needs to be a good representation of what you can do before you join. So what you're going to do is you're going to stay where you are until you get to a point where you are called a must join. When you are a must join, it means you've done enough work that has been under union contracts, etc., that the union is like, okay, dude, it's time for you to join or hit the road.
Wait for them to ask me.
Wait for them to tell you it is time to join, and then join then.
Okay, thank you. That's really insightful. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Awesome advice.
The number one thing that I tell people is don't be like me and move to LA immediately after college, because the streets of Los Angeles are paved with the crushed dreams of the young and naive who just think I'll just move to Hollywood and become an actor or a musician and that's it. No other plan B. Just all. And 20 years later, they're still pumping gas or serving food.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for really assessing what you want. Like the whole I really thought that my goal was to be an executive and to eventually run a studio. That was when I was 12, that was the goal. When I got there and I was working, I did love the work, but the thing about, not to be, very dramatic about it all, but when you think you're going to die, you really do, go back over what is important to you. And what I found is what was important to me was the people around me, and to be a part of something and not necessarily be a gatekeeper. I wanted to be somebody who empowered and lifted people up. So I had to change the direction of my career. And sometimes, I still look back and think I'd have so much more money had I just stayed on that path. But, I have created a life that I feel good about. I wake up and I talk to people who I like. I, had 2 kids along the way who I'm actually present for. And even though I travel all the time, so I leave them constantly. But, I am the person who I am happier being than I think I would have been had I stayed in the direction I was going. So, you have to learn when to reassess and they always tell you to never give up, stay the course. But I'm one who says never give up, but don't forget to look to your left and look to your right, because there are opportunities there that might just be better than what you think you want. And so if you're open to the possibilities, you'll never know how exciting your life can be.
Bo, did you have some more questions? I know you have to leave early, so.
No, it's okay. I'll
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Darrien right now? Otherwise, it'll just be the two of us chatting.
Some of the big productions you've been on.
David was asking, what are some of the big productions that you've been on?
I'm actually not on productions. I by the time when people talk to me, I get them ready and I actually send them on their way to SAG-AFTRA. When I was a development exec, like I said, we were notoriously bad about putting anything into production. So the only real film that we managed to do was Gridlocked, which had Tim Roth and Tandy Newton and Tupac Shakur, which was a wonderful experience. Had I known it was going to be the only one, basically, I might have paid more attention. We also had a hand in How to Be a Player, which is Def Comedy Jam's thing. But yeah, that one's not high on my list.
Oh, okay. So Tupac was a better actor than Bill Bellamy then?
Shockingly enough. I love Bill too. He's a wonderful guy, but Tupac was actually a really great actor.
Art, it looked like you had a question?
Yes. So, 2 questions. One is how the pandemic is affecting the industry. And then secondly, to help understand your company better, you and how to get in contact with you.
Okay. I'm going to take the second one first because that's quicker and easier. My company is simply an educational program. You can actually go to SAGIndie.org, which I'm sure Kurt can share with you easily, and find out about the contracts or what we do and how we do it. And if you want to contact us, the easiest way is that there's something that our email on the website just says info@sagindie.org. I know that seems like it's going to go nowhere, but it actually just goes to my assistant. And you can just say, I talked to Darrien, and if you have a question specifically for me, she'll just send it to me. Or if it's a question, she can answer it, because like I said, we all have film degrees. So we all can answer film questions. So yeah, we are literally just a free service to help you along the way. And if we don't know the answer, we'll help you try to find it. The harder question, how is the pandemic affecting the industry? Well, obviously it's having a huge effect, and things are definitely have been in fairly dire straits. There have been no productions happening for a year. They're starting now, but for an entire year, there were not actors being hired, there were not productions going in, and it's a very difficult thing. It's funny because we at SAGIndie have been talking to people all along. The festivals, are continuing. They're just going virtual, and it has its upshots and its downshots, but everybody's kind of surviving that. But productions themselves are impacted in ways that people just had no idea about. because of the pandemic, everybody's budget is cut by about 25%. There's now 25% is going just to COVID. Your days are longer because you have less people on set and everybody has to kind of come in and out, and it makes for a longer day. So it's a great combination of less money and more time needed that no production wants to hear. It's an interesting thing that, you know, actors in this scenario are, you know, SAG-AFTRA is being extremely careful because your actors are the most vulnerable people on any set. They're the only ones who can't do their job with masks and gloves and face masks while they're shooting, unless you've managed to write it in. So everybody around them has to be so incredibly careful. And it has to be taken very seriously, because when they go down, the whole production goes down and everybody stops getting paid. So it's imperative that people treat that carefully and with all the respect that it deserves. And just in general, we're all just trying to survive it. You know, the pandemic has made for a lot of strange bedfellows. People are working together in ways that they haven't before, but it's all just in an attempt to hang on long enough for the world to get back on its axis. And hopefully that's happening. People are starting to play with, like, right now I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna have to go to Cannes, because Cannes is going. They're gonna start back up, and there's an American contingency that may be going, but everybody's kind of too afraid to.
There's not a lot of pity for you if you think that you have to go to France.
You know, it seems really great until you think they're in the mire of it. So it's a little bit like I have to go into the ring of fire. Like, it's questionable whether or not I want to get on a plane that long. Do I want to be in a place where nobody's vaccinated yet?
Lillian over here said that she would volunteer to go in your stay if you want.
You know, many people have said that once.
You know, it is interesting what you said there. Just for reference, so people know that This Is Their Land film that just shot here last week. They had a COVID compliance officer on set, and they were basically the gatekeeper. You could not go over to the set until you passed by the COVID compliance officer, and you had to have been tested. You had to show that you had been vaccinated, and it had to be on a daily basis that people were getting swabbed before you could even walk over to the actual set area. So that's a lot of the directors and producers that I know in LA say that sets are cut up into pods. They break it up into different sections so that there may only be 5 or 10 people in one specific area of the set. And that's kind of how they function. They sort of funnel people in and out as need be. So the one area that's been able to work, and where I think we're going to get a flood of films over the next couple months, is animation.
Animation. You can do that at home.
It's the one thing people could do at home. So we are going to see a ton of animated films come out over the next year, because it was the only thing people could work on when everything was shut down with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. And, you know, the funny thing about the pandemic is that it proved one thing about this kind of a problem, is that it was the one thing that wasn't contingent upon how much money you had. Like, having a big production with a ton of money did not spare you from this problem. And in fact, it made you more vulnerable, because if you have all the money in the world and you can't keep Batman safe, you know, money is not the issue. And the small productions with little money and fewer people and the ability to adjust and move and be flexible actually had the small advantage over those huge productions. And so we had 5 productions go in and finish in the fall of last year, because they were indie and because they were small. They were able to make movies and finish their movies in the New York area before everything really shut down again. So money is not the answer here. Having it makes life a little bit better, but having a huge production was an absolute disadvantage for people.
And I think that really reflected this year with the Academy Awards too, because we saw so many indie films, we saw so many films from Netflix and streaming services, and more of what I guess you could define as art house films ended up being most of the nominees, because all of the big action films, Darrien and I have talked about it before, outside of like Tenet, what was actually in theaters in 2020 that you can remember going to see? Like I remember before the pandemic hit, I saw Sonic the Hedgehog because my buddy Patrick was the writer of that film, and I saw Bill and Ted 3 in theaters, and then Tenet. And outside of that, what was even in theaters?
Shockingly, those two didn't make the Oscar list. I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
how, you know,
Patrick. Patrick was pissed. He was calling a conspiracy that Sonic did not win like best adapted screenplay.
the interesting thing is that it has forever changed the face of film in the industry, because up until then, they were trying very hard to keep the streamers out of the Oscars. And now that genie's out of the bottle, it's never going to be put back in. They're going to take, there's no way to not take something that comes out on Netflix or Amazon anymore. So that's forever changed. Now, because of pandemic and not being able to put things in theaters, the backlog is huge on films that are kind of done or almost done and are waiting to go. So it's like being it's like being in an airport where you're number 25, you're in the plane that's 25 in line to take off. It's going to take a long time before we get those films all the way through. And the difference between them, you're going to find big films coming out every other week because there's just not enough time. And also the windows have now changed. So now windows are only 30 days to 45 days. So you have a week of unencumbered space to bring your big film out. You may be able to keep some of your screens for the next 2 weeks. Then you're gone. And in a month and a half, it's going to be on a streamer that hopefully your company controls. So hopefully it's a Disney Plus, or, everybody is coming out with their streamer, because they now are going to have to funnel all of this stuff through.
Yeah. My buddy Max, who's a film producer, he was our guest in February or March, I think it was. He told us his whole studio has basically stopped trying to make films for theaters. Now they're just doing deals with Netflix going forward. With the that's what COVID has changed the most for him as a producer. They're still doing films in the $5 to $10 million budget range for every film, but they're putting it out on the sole anticipation that it's going to a streaming service, not that it's going to theaters anymore.
Yeah, you can't get a $10 million film into a theater because there's just too many $200 million films that need the screens. It also means you really can't make a 40 million, 50 million, 60 million film right now, because it's not expensive enough to force itself into a theater, and it's not cheap enough to go to a streamer with any hope of you having any money left. You're going to be in the hole by 50 million. So right now, trying to make a movie from 30 million to really even to 100 million is just not going to happen with any kind of regularity for, I'd say, maybe a good 2 years. It's going to be painful. If you have a decent sized film, it's going to be a bit painful for a while because everybody's just stuck.
Oh, did you have another question?
I did. I had a different question, but your comments kind of brought on another one. Is what do you think the economic impacts are going to be in the following years for films, like especially big box office films? Do you think it's having everybody crowded in like the scheduling of like when each film's released, like you said, like pretty much every weekend or every other weekend? Do you think that's gonna impact some films negatively, some positively? What do you think might come out of it?
I think it's going to impact the amount of box office negatively, but because this is why everybody's pushing to get their own pay streamer, because they're going to make more money on that streaming subscription, and that's going to save their day. So that's why they're all like, you got to pay this amount of money if you want to see this film, because only so many people can get into that theater. And even those that are coming out this summer, as they're starting to say, okay, we're going to release, the theaters can only fit so many people. They're still on half room. They may be that way. It might end in the summer. It might end at the end of the year. We're really not sure. So box office just isn't going to be the end all and be all anymore, which may be advantageous now to smaller films when box office isn't the only thing that we judge things by.
It's really concerning for theaters too, the survivability of theaters at this point. We're already seeing some chains go down. Where we saw the sad ending to one of the most iconic theaters in the country with the Cinerama Dome, though it sounds like some new people are trying to buy it. I want
Yeah,
to make
we're
sure.
hopeful.
Yeah, I love going to the Cinerama Dome because it was the one. Even though you think LA is this massive city, most theaters were playing the exact same films. The Cinerama Dome would be the only place where I could see like the latest Jean-Pierre Jeunet film, because no other theater in all of Los Angeles would be showing it, and I'd be the only person there in the theater to see the
Yeah, I
film.
was like, you were also the only person who was clamoring for it. But I mourn Pacific, that chain, because that's the one that was the one at the mall that I would go to the most often. And it's a little surprising because I don't know if this is true or not, so please don't quote me, but somebody said that it's actually owned by, now I don't remember, maybe I think it was like Scientology or something. So they have a lot of money.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I want to make sure that Joyce, Court, and Lori get a chance to chime in. Do either of you have a question?
Hey, this is
Well,
Court. I got a question. With regard to budgeting these like micro budget type um, indie films, yeah, I worked on some indie things like many years ago, and the actors were taking deferred payment.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
exist
I wonder
anymore.
how that's changed in modern times, and how and even if you were doing it, how would you support all the, the health benefits and workman's comp and, all the other stuff that's got to go in.
Court, those are excellent questions. Yeah, deferred payment actually doesn't exist anymore. It probably hasn't existed since 2005. There've just been
Yeah, I gave
minimums.
away my age.
There's just been minimums established, and those
Mm.
minimums were pretty low. They were, $125 a day if you're making a film for 250,000 or under, so micro. That doesn't exist anymore exactly, but it's not so much the union wanting to raise rates, although God knows they always want to raise rates, but it wasn't the impetus for it. It's labor law and how much is your minimum wage. In order to hit minimum wage, the rates had to come up. They're still not that high. So if you were making a film for $300,000 or under, you have to pay any actor $201 a day plus pension and health, which is 20%. And then it steps up the higher your budget is, and the low budget contracts tap out at 2 million. Or if you do some incentives, you can get up to about 3 million. After 3 million, your basic agreement, you're paying the same thing that Warner Brothers is paying.
Okay.
It's
Well,
not
thank you.
horrible. It's still doable, but it is, there used to be a time where people could just give you their. Can I tell you why you don't ever want an actor to pay, to work for you for free, though? A little known fact.
Uh,
Anytime an actor works for you for free, they own their performance.
mhm.
So if at the end of that production, they are either not happy with how they look, not happy with how the movie came out, not happy with you, they can actually deny you the right to use their footage. And now you're stuck with a film and you can't show them in it. So any amount of money is like, it's a little bit like engaging a lawyer. If you're going to confess to murder, and I hope none of you will, you have to give your lawyer, $1 first in order to engage them. Actors are the same way. The moment you give them any kind of money, they become an actor for hire. And then you own their performance. And by the way, workers' comp is huge because people like to do small budget films and think, well, it's workers' comp. What's going to happen? I can forego that insurance. And it's probably the one insurance. Well, you should get all insurances, but
Yeah.
workers' comp is incredibly insidious in that anyone affiliated with your set The moment they walk out of their house and get to a public sidewalk, they are on your dime. And if you have the person who falls off the sidewalk and breaks an ankle 10 miles from your set, you still have to pay that bill. So workers' comp is one of those things you never want to go without.
Tom had a follow-up to that.
I'm curious. Does that also cover to get your actor to write a?
I can't hear him.
Oh, he was acting if that also includes if an actor fills out a release form.
For which part?
Thank you. Oh, sorry. The release form, in other words, to be allowed to film them, record their likeness, their voice, and all that. A standard release form.
In order to work for you for free?
Yeah. So you can release the film later down the road if you manage to make any money with it. That's another matter.
Well, here the deal is this: in accordance to the union, if they're a union actor, they may not work for free. You must pay them. The minimum is the minimum. But I will tell you something as a producer that I know this is being recorded, but I'm sure nobody will play this for SAG-AFTRA. You have to pay your actor. You have to go through the process. You have to go through the paperwork. You have to issue a check. You have to take out pension and health so that that can go into their account so that they can afford to get sick and even one day maybe retire. Those are the important things. They want you to know how to do it. Little known fact, if you have an actor who really is like, I'll work for free, I just want to see this made, you go through that whole process the way you're supposed to, and at the end of the day, they get a check. Nobody can tell them what to do with that check. They can just not cash it. They can cash it and give it back. Like, that part is of nobody's business but their own. You have to do your paperwork. You have to submit it. You have to create the check, and you must pay pension and health. But at that point, your job is done. They can make a bonfire with it for all anyone cares. That's up to them. They will get taxed on it, but there you go.
That's definitely good to know. It sounded like either Joyce or Lori had a question
Lori.
too when Court was chiming in. So Lori?
Yeah, so I maybe have a few questions. So I was curious on how many questions you answer through email or by phone call on like a day or maybe a week basis. I don't know if you keep track of that. And then do you get tired of answering questions? And of course, I'm asking more questions, as well as do you get tired of watching films? And do you find that you can still watch films to like relax
Okay.
or enjoy?
So do I answer a lot of questions when people ask them of me. They don't always ask, and then I'm actually unhappy because my job is to answer questions. So I don't have a problem doing it. And I often get people who are like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have another question. I'll only ask one more." I'm like, "I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm happy to do it." How many times do we answer questions a day, or how many phone calls? I'm just going to be honest. I don't answer a phone. My assistant answers the phone. Our phones are actually transferred to her because we're not in offices. So I don't know how many phone calls she gets a day, but she handles them and she passes me the ones that are specific to me. I get a ton of email though. On a daily basis, I wake up to about 150 email. I get rid of them, and throughout the day, if I had to guess, I think I'd probably do 300 email a day. And most of it is just I'm not dealing with it or I'm passing it on, but at least 150 to 200 I have to respond to in some way, shape, or form. I don't mind it, but it's, I'm constantly looking at my email. And films. Here's the funny thing about my job. I go to film festivals all the time, but my job is to talk to people and to engage with filmmakers. So I actually don't get to see a lot of films because given the choice between being in a film lounge and talking to filmmakers and asking what can I do for you and sitting in a theater not talking to anybody for 2 hours, I actually am going to always pick the film lounge. So I don't actually see a lot of movies. I went to Sundance this year, and because I normally go to Sundance every year, and I go to receptions and events, and I do panels, and I do interviews. I typically see 5 movies at Sundance every year. It's rare if I see more than 5 movies, and I'm there a week. It's pathetic. This year, because I was home and on my couch and I didn't have to go to parties, etc., I saw over 20 films. It was like amazing. I was so happy. So I still love watching movies. I just don't get that opportunity. And so and I do juries on festivals, and that's a mixed bag of happy and tedious. I do sometimes get tired. I find that I snack far too much when I'm sitting on my couch watching movies because it's hard to sit still in your house that long. But I'm always happy to watch a movie. I just don't get to watch that many.
Well, I can add to that a little bit, Lori, in that in my 12 years in Hollywood, I spent more time working in the music industry than I did in the film industry there. And with my job, I would often go to concerts sometimes 5, 6 times a week. And after a while, I'm like, this is just sort of a drag of every single night going to concert. I know, wow, complaining about that. And then hearing all of the new music, a lot of it would start to kind of blur together. And you would start to get jaded, but then every now and then an album would come along, or I'd see a random band at a show in LA, and it would totally rejuvenate my entire faith in the future of music. And that would become my new favorite band for the next week. And I think the same thing can happen with film, where you do see a lot of films that seem repetitive and are following the same kind of themes, and then every now and then something comes along that is so different and so off kilter that it can totally rejuvenate your enthusiasm in the industry and being involved in, even when you're working on the industry side of it as opposed to just being a fan.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's as interesting to see bad films. One, because you don't have to finish them if they're really terrible, and I'm not one who turns films off easily. So if I don't watch the end of it, that's saying something. But then you also get to talk to other people and say, "Who saw this? This is crazy, right? Like, is it me?" And so it's still kind of fun. But when you see something really great, it is life affirming. It's weird how happy it makes you to see something that you love. So in that respect, it's amazing. It just doesn't happen all that often. I think once a year I see something that I think is my favorite film of the year. I think last year there were 2 that I really loved, and when that happens, you're so excited about it. So
All right, we're getting a little bit of a slow network, so things are cutting in and out for us over here. Hopefully, the folks online are still here and everything okay. Art?
Hey, so our theaters open in LA, and because our theaters were open, they just closed. And
no,
I guess,
we're
yeah.
going the other way. Our theaters are going to open. California is opening up fully over the course of the next, say, 4 weeks, because we are in like the best possible shape. I think we're the best state this pandemic wise in the country. We have had no deaths, I think, this week at all. We have had very few new cases and very few cases completely. I think LA had 300. We had 415 cases this week, ongoing cases this week total in all of Southern California. So theaters are opening. They're not open yet, but it's happening. I think it's June 15, something like that. I don't know if Kurt's still with us.
Froze.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's frozen.
Kurt, you're froze.
But at least you guys heard me.
Yes.
You guys can just repeat it to them. Do you guys have any other questions while we're waiting for them?
You said something earlier, something about being near death. Did I misunderstand that?
No. So when I was a development exec and the company shut down, I had an illness, and it was a very serious illness. And nobody quite knew what was wrong with me for over a year. And I honestly just thought I was going to die. I don't think anybody was completely sure that I was going to survive it. And eventually, it ended up being a fairly simple fix, surgery, nothing major. I had weirdly a bad appendix, and I had an appendicitis that nobody caught, and it eventually ruptured, and it was a slow rupture, so it was poisoning me for about a year. And
Wow.
so it took a long time for them to figure out. I thankfully survived because of the way it ruptured. I was able to survive it, and the moment they cut it out, I was fine, and I was healed. But for that year of with nobody understanding why I was in so much pain and so sick and my body was shutting down, I I just thought, okay, this is it. And so when I survived, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I want to feel good about going to work every day. I want to feel good about the people who I talk to. And I, as a development exec, so much is breaking bad news to people or eating with people you don't really like. Like those meetings where you're having lunches and breakfasts and drinks with people, and it became so tedious because you're like, oh, I got to spend an hour and a half with somebody who I would never eat with in any other circumstance. And I made a vow to myself. I just said, in my next life, whatever I'm going to do now that I'm recovered, I'm never again going to eat with a human being that I don't choose to eat with, that I wouldn't choose to spend that time with. And I started working with filmmakers and hanging out, and I have kept that promise to myself. I have never sat down and eaten a meal with anyone I didn't like and didn't want to eat with. And my
Good
life is
for
just
you.
infinitely better.
Well, when you said that, it triggered something in me because I'm a survivor of a ruptured brain aneurysm,
Oh,
which
God.
happened in 2011, and I'm among only 1% that survives that type of aneurysm without permanent brain damage. And that was life changing. I'd already been doing my photography for quite a while, but I was still doing my main job, which was a commercial property account. And I had like 20 shopping centers I was doing accounting for, and the stress was off the charts. So because of that aneurysm, it just gave me so much strength and ambition to change my life that I gave up that job. I was making buku bucks for Redding, California at the time, and started doing what I really loved to do, which was my photography. And it completely changed my life. And
Yeah.
I've never looked back. I've never regretted quitting that job. Um, it's my whole life has changed, and that's
Yeah.
how you triggered that. So thank you for bringing that up.
I
Yeah.
totally understand it because it makes a difference on how you wake up in the morning.
Oh,
I would
definitely. I'm
wake
so
up.
happy to wake up. Period.
Yeah. But I used to wake up when I was still working it and just be like grinding my teeth, like, oh, how am I going to get through this? This is what I have to accomplish, but nobody's listening and nobody's doing this. And I'm just constantly banging my head. And my mother, God bless her soul, finally just told me, which allowed me to kind of let this all go. She said, Darrien, there are them that cannot be saved. You're going to need to save yourself.
Right.
And I just have always remembered, people are like, what's your best advice you've been given? I said, it doesn't seem like nice advice, but it certainly helped me understand that at some point, I have to just let people go do what they're going to do. And I have to do what I know is right and not to let them drag me down with them. And
Right.
yeah, now my whole thing is I wake up and now I have a certain level of stress and I have a certain level of like, ugh, I got things to do, but I never regret it because I still am talking to people I like. I spend my time doing things that I enjoy. It makes such a huge difference to just my whole feeling.
Yeah,
of
it
what I
really
do.
does. You have to become number one in your life. And for so many of us, that's really hard to do, you know, especially for women. We're
Yeah.
used to raising our kids and taking care of our husband and our grandkids. And it's really a switch to put yourself in that number one position. But boy, does it feel good.
Yeah, it does.
We're back with audio and a little bit of picture. Sorry about us disappearing here for a little bit.
No worries. We kept it going.
Bowen has to get going, but he had one more question for you, Darrien.
Sure.
Yeah. So, is there anything about your job, your organization, or the film industry in general that you think people don't know about or don't think about that you think they should?
Oh my God, that's a huge question.
Sorry.
Um, there's a lot of different ways I can answer that, and some of them are happier and nicer, and some of them maybe not so much. But I will leave you in particular with this. You're at a point in your life and in your career where people will be open to helping you. It doesn't last forever. So take advantage of it. Ask questions, sit with people, let them give you their wisdom. Because by the time you hit a certain point in age, they're going to be looking at the next young person who's coming up. So take advantage of that and volunteer to do anything for it within reason for people so that you engender that good feeling. So take advantage of youth because right now you're in a sweet spot. People will talk to you, they will help you, they will help you find your way. Don't forget that and don't miss those opportunities.
Thank you. I'm really grateful. I appreciate that a lot. It's been more than a pleasure talking and listening to you.
Oh, thanks, Bowen.
I gotta
Good
go.
luck.
Yep. See you, Bowen.
I'll get your recording after.
Yep. Bowen is actually interning for us right now, so
Oh, excellent.
we're giving him a lot of remedial work and providing advice in exchange.
Well, I decided not to go with the underbelly side of things instead of the industry. Yeah, I was like, oh, he's just starting out. I hate to squash his dreams early about like how I mean I think people are generally pretty good in this industry, but it only takes a few to be really awful. And I think we're in an era where people are starting to not accept them anymore, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, thankfully, I think the whole Weinstein case for good finally ended the whole casting couch tradition that was
Yes,
going back to the silent film era. So
that he that could not have come soon enough, and so thank God. And then also now we have Scott Rudin going down, and I'm somebody who worked for Scott Rudin's company and managed to escape him, and but his behavior was legendarily horrible. And I've had to tell people, like, look, my former boss was famous for throwing a mug of coffee at an assistant's head. Like, there are people, and it wasn't at all hidden. Everybody knew.
I had a chair thrown at my head at Capitol Records. So
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories of just absolute craziness. And if you haven't seen this tiny little movie called The Assistant, which like that, I mean, that's not even like the whole thing because at the end, so Court, you've seen the movie?
Yes, I believe I have.
So my whole thing is at the end, I wanted to see did she go and join those guys for drinks because that would have meant that she's now going to become one. Like there are
Yeah,
there have been
which
millions.
was my assumption. You know.
I mean, there have just been millions of people who have enabled them because there were no choices in it. Like, and I know I had a situation when I was coming up where, not with Scott Rudin, but that somebody said something that was so wrong and illegal that I sat there and thought, do I sue this person or do I not? if I sue, I will make a ton of money. There's no way, there's nothing that can save them. But I'll never work in the industry again.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'd rather work.
This
So
this transitions really well into a conversation that we had last month with Jesse Borrego, which I think you might have an interesting take on as well. We got on the subject of Hollywood's long history of whitewashing roles, of white actors playing non-white characters,
yeah,
like all the Charlie Chan films, the really cringeworthy performance of Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, um, John Wayne playing Genghis Khan, just
yeah,
yeah, Johnny Depp as Tana, and for the longest time, this stuff was totally acceptable, and we're now seeing a big pushback in that. Maybe it's just an extension of the whole, woke movement and all of the societal changes that are going on. But we're seeing, particularly voice actors. I'm thinking of The Simpsons, of certain actors who have played white actors who have voiced non-white roles are saying they're no longer going to do them anymore.
right.
Um, to me, it seems like it's a long overdue thing that should have happened a long time ago in Hollywood. But there's no, um, there doesn't seem to be an issue when there's things like traditional white roles are suddenly going to non-white actors. Like just recently, for example, I know they're working on a new Powerpuff Girls thing, and Donald Faison was cast as the scientist for it, which in the cartoon at least was a white actor. I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, if we're being fair, uh, it brings up an interesting point of there's no pushback of a black actor being hired for what was a white role before, but the long history of white actors in roles in Hollywood for many decades. Now people are saying let's just
Well,
kind of
let me ask you this.
move beyond that. So yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that in the Girls that the scientist was white, or was white the default?
That's a fantastic point. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like they made a point of it. It just was never considered to be anything else.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think I get what you're saying, but I want to make mention that yeah, things are getting better in that respect. Where it's no longer PC to pretend to be black, Latino, anything. It's no longer acceptable to tan anyone or blackface anyone, although frankly people have done it within the last few years. So
Hmm.
those things are now frowned on. But let's not forget one group of people who are absolutely being left behind, and that's people with different abilities. There are still more roles for disabled people being played by able-bodied people than there are people with actual disabilities. Even when the role, their disability isn't the role. Like, whether or not it matters that they have a cane, whether or not it matters that they, are deaf, or whatever it is, if the role can be played by them, they're not being even brought into the room for it. And if the role calls for that person to have that disability, they're still not getting called in for it.
Right. Like a great example of that, I think, is Breaking Bad. I didn't know until after I finished watching the Breaking Bad series that the son in that show actually was disabled.
Oh, I knew
Yeah,
that.
RJ has cerebral
Or you
palsy.
made it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also look at Glee. There's a kid who can sing who's wheelchair bound, but he's completely able bodied. There are a plethora of people who are wheelchair bound who can sing.
Where I think all of that started was when Scarlett Johansson was cast in Ghost in the Shell,
Yeah.
because the one genre you don't mess with is anime fans. Like they
Yeah.
are like seriously hardcore. Where when a white actor came into that role, there was so much pushback against that. I think that's maybe where people started to look back and say, you know what, maybe this century-long history of putting white actors into roles and blackface is maybe not the the proper thing, or Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's is maybe not the most appropriate thing that we should be doing.
Not the appropriate thing. But it's still, we're still working on it. Like the Academy has new roles. new rules about what can be Best Picture and the diversity things that you have to achieve, and the backlash was so incredibly strong that I like wrote a piece for LinkedIn. I was asked to like just give my opinion, and I just said, oh, you know, I'm a little optimistic that this can actually make people think. And people came back and said, this is an abomination. This is terrible. All of our greatest movies could never be made. And then somebody said, Casablanca couldn't be made under these things. So, one, it's stupid to compare a movie made that long ago to a rule made now because the world isn't the same. But I actually stopped and said, do you know the rules of these new rules? Because one of them is a major role has to be a person, a diverse person. Well, that includes women. And I'm pretty sure Elsa had a fairly important part in that movie. But also, you cannot tell me that you can't find two people in a film that is set in Morocco. You can't give a line to two more people who can say, let me take you to your seat, here's your drink, can I hand you a menu, sir? Like,
You know, the one rule that I think of where there was the exception, Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, but the only reason why people accepted that was because it was a spoof making fun of method actors and the extremes that they go to.
yeah,
So, like,
I mean,
that
it
was the
was
one time where
because he
people were like,
knew,
it's okay.
they knew the joke, they knew like this is the ridiculousness that people do, and he totally gets a pass for it because it was brilliant. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And by the way, one of the rules is also your department heads have to be people of color. And I have yet to see a film where I have worried about whether the head of transportation was a Latino male. Not once has that changed the viewing of that film. So people get really scared about changes before they really read the changes. And the changes are not that difficult to manage, especially when women are half the world and they count as diverse. Like when you, how can you not make it?
We, as if we didn't have enough wind going on, we have a helicopter right overhead because we're next door to the hospital and they're doing a medevac right now. So bear with us while we get blown away. Tom is about to do his Mary Poppins impression, hanging onto our umbrella.
Nice.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Well, what about when they go the opposite direction there? Like when they cast Jay Hernandez as Thomas Sullivan Magnum, and he's Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of extreme. Just because they're trying to go for a different ethnic group audience.
But here's the
but
thing, Magnum is a completely made up character, not based on anything, and his role wasn't really as a white guy. He's a detective. I think that I have more issue with rebooting shows instead of just making them different shows. Like
Yeah.
they all that is
I wanna watch that
bastardizing
film.
something that they had license to use. The character could have been anyone. Like MacGyver. Do we care if MacGyver, the next iteration of MacGyver, is like a redhead? It's MacGyver. It's not a real person. It doesn't really matter. But and unless it was a show that was like MacGyver, King of the Redheads, then you have a thing. It's really like the reboot and the silliness of constantly rebooting stuff.
What about the James Bond where they talk about making James Bond a woman?
Well, the whole thing with James Bond is that James Bond is an alias for whoever's assuming that detective role, or that secret agent role. So it's not
It's
like
007.
James Bond. It's
Yeah.
that when they become that character, like in Men in Black, they erase the names, and that person, while they're serving as 007, is James Bond. So it could absolutely be a woman. It could absolutely be black. It could be anyone who is that secret agent that is assigned the 007 role.
See, I don't know that I go with that exactly, because I don't think 007 and James Bond, I think it's 007 is the designation. James Bond is just the name, his name. So it could be Sarah Vasquez 007. It's the job. So the job is the designation of a highly skilled spy, and it could be anybody. Here's, however, why I don't think it totally works. Just bear with me on this. Like, should it be Idris Elba, if you will? No,
Hmm.
because the whole point of 007 is that he can infiltrate anywhere and walk through. And despite the fact that he keeps telling people, my name is Bond, James Bond, he isn't somebody who you necessarily look at the moment he walks in. And I guarantee you, if Idris Elba walks into almost anywhere in the world, people are going to look at him. So it doesn't work exactly the way people wanted to be, like, oh, he's suave. I'm like, yeah, and you notice him. Not a good thing for a spy.
Yeah,
But
are they doing
woman,
it? Are they doing it because they're more evolved, or because they're trying to get more money from a wider audience group?
or more money from a wider group.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
what I'm
Which
saying.
isn't a bad
Sure.
thing. That's your job, and you're supposed to reflect the world that you live in. So that's not a problem. It's just, is it realistic and does it work? I would buy a woman as a 007. I would buy a woman of a variety of different races before all the men. I think it becomes a little more, it's unrealistic to pretend that a tall black man can walk into a casino in, Monaco and not have every security individual with their cameras trained on him. Let's be clear, that's not the world we live in. So it's a little, pie in the sky to be like, oh, he could be a spy. No, he can't. He's already got people who are clocking him the moment he got out of the car. He probably couldn't get out of the car because he got stopped by the police for having that nice car. So it doesn't work. But it could work for women. It could work for other people. It just can't work for Idris Elba.
Yeah. And unfortunately, James Bond as Idris Elba would get a lot of DWBs, sadly. Uh,
With those
Lo-
cars, absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
Lori dropped a question in the chat room, which Lori just wanted you to explain more about what you were observing or doing at film festivals.
Oh, um, I am talking to filmmakers a lot. My job is really just buy a filmmaker a beer and listen to them. I listen to when things go well, how it goes, and when the contracts don't work well, what happened. Is there anything I can step in and do to help them? A lot of it is just, when you make your next film, come talk to me ahead of time, and I'll help get you through that process quicker and easier. But I am also trying to see what executives are there. It's a lot of like, what's happening? Are things selling out of this festival? Are things getting buzzed out of this festival? What do I need to keep an eye on, throughout the season, so I can see if I can see some of the buzzier things, because I feel like they're going to come back, and be part of the, if not Oscar talk, then maybe the indie, like Spirit Awards Gotham talk. So I just do, I basically do what I'm doing with you guys. I just sit there and talk a lot.
Does that answer your question, Lori, or do you want to go into more detail?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I guess uh, oh, I'm not gonna be able to phrase it. I'm like trying to think of it on the spot. I guess mm, you can come back to me. I'll try to verbalize it.
Well, I have a question then. As someone who is in their second year of trying to organize film festivals, what are some do's or don'ts about putting together a film festival?
Maybe don't start one right now. And really, it's just about meeting people where they are. Know what you're going for. If you're going for local, then really involve the community, and make this the most fun, most interesting thing for the community. If you're going international, then your stresses are different, and you have to have different considerations. But it's the ones in the middle who are international, but also local, but also want to be, this niche and that they are pulling themselves in a lot of different directions. I would rather see somebody do one thing really well than five things really mediocre. So, you know, that's the biggest thing. And it's also to realize that, filmmakers are poor. They need community, but they also need food. So when you bring people, in, if they're there, just realize that you can't just drop them off at a hotel and say, okay, we'll see you in 3 days and good luck to you. Those people probably don't have a dime to their name. So it's always nice to have ways where they can just get some food, get some nosh. It doesn't have to be a fancy dinner. In fact, it probably shouldn't be, because most of them are really not interested in they're not going to go to a gala. They didn't bring a tux. What they really want is a place where they can all hang out, talk to each other, eat nachos, and have a pitcher of beer. And that's probably the nicest thing you can do for them. And me.
So, can you speak on the great exodus from Los Angeles and California? How how it's affecting you, or streetlight with in the news we hear about it all the time. That so I don't know, thousands of people are moving out of LA weekly, and yet home prices are going up there. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I had somebody who asked me the other day, she was being considered for a job. She lives out of the country, and she was thinking about coming back for a job in Los Angeles. And she's like, can I live on this? And I was like, you can live on it. You're not buying a home, but it's highly overrated, really, because it's so much trouble. Get an apartment in a good neighborhood with good public schools, so that you're not also paying private schools, which are astronomically high. Uh, but the real answer to your question is, are we worried about the amount of people leaving Southern California? No, get out. Get off the freeway. We're not worried. And frankly, every single January, when the Rose Bowl happens and the Rose Parade happens, and everybody sees us sitting there under blue skies and t-shirts, there are a billion people who are in Wisconsin and Michigan and all that who make a plan to move to California. I'm
Or
like,
Oregon.
please, God. Yeah, I'm like, please, God, just let it rain or be overcast on that day so we can convince them not to come here. So
Well,
yeah, no, we're not worried about this. They can go.
for the entire 12 years that I was in LA working in the entertainment industry, at times making good money, I had zero expectation that I would ever be able to buy a house. None whatsoever. I think what Art was delving into more so was the matter of the film industry leaving LA, because over the past decade or so, we've seen production in Georgia and New Mexico and British Columbia just explode. And we're even getting more interest here in Southern Oregon than we've ever had before, of studios that just want to get outside of LA, who have been penny pinched to death, and want to come to areas where communities actually want them, as opposed to being in LA. It's such a nuisance. The places where I lived, it was like every week you'd have to move your car because someone was filming. They put out a notice and they're going to tow everyone at 6 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, it's true to a certain extent, and it's not true to another. If you're not a studio, yeah, I mean, like, sometimes it's nice to go places where people aren't so jaded that the moment you say, can we film in your front yard, they don't like see dollar signs. And certainly, Atlanta is huge, New Orleans is huge, New Mexico, moderate, but we're also seeing places that thought they could handle it that couldn't handle it. There's places like Michigan that gets a film fund and then it implodes.
Yeah.
So it is not as easy as people think it is. And the fact of the matter is, in the last 2 to 3 years, production's coming back to LA because we have everything you need, because we have people, we have weather. We don't have a lot of room. And that's the thing that helps people move out, is that you need a little bit more acreage. And we just don't have that anymore. We have too many people from Wisconsin. So that's the thing.
I want to keep people from moving to California, put a billboard up what their property taxes will be.
Oh God, I don't even want to deal with the property taxes because I have a home, and yeah, it's the bane of my existence.
Away.
Oh, we got about maybe 10, 15 minutes left before Darrien has to go check another 200 emails before she goes to bed. But we really sincerely appreciate you being here and all of the advice. So I want to give the folks who are online another opportunity, another round if people have questions. Lori, Joyce, or Cord, or looks like another person joined us, whoever caller 4 is. A name didn't pop up for you. But
I see Michael. Hi, Michael.
Michael.
I don't know why I'm not showing up for you, Kurt, but
Oh,
it's
hey, Michael.
sorry I'm late.
Okay,
I was in a microbiology lecture.
no worries. So, Darrien, Michael is a
Oh,
former intern
sure.
of Klamath Film, who is also a senior at Oregon Tech here in Klamath, just wrapping up his degree and has helped us out extensively. So, Michael, since you were late, Darrien here is the head of SAGIndie and is an all-around expert on the film industry and travels around the world going to film festivals. We're all very jealous of her job. Do you have something that you wanted to talk to Darrien about?
I don't think I could really come up with a question
I
on
was
the
like,
spot
wow.
being so late, but it is nice to meet you. I'm glad I was at least able to stop by for a little bit.
I mean, everybody has that microbiology lecture excuse. It's so tried.
I mean, I
Dog,
can
my
I can show
homework,
you my notes if you.
No.
How about Joyce, Lori, or Cord? Do either of you have any further questions before we start to wrap things up here with Darrien?
Hmm.
You're not forced to, by the way. Don't feel like
Okay,
I'm
may
I'm
I ask?
wondering if you were not working, what film festival would you definitely want to attend and be able to watch the films actually?
what festival would I really want to go to? I really want to get back to Maui because it's really nice and they watch their films outside and it's really cool. I wouldn't mind going to Berlin. I want to go to Edinburgh Fringe, which I haven't been able to work out yet. I mean, most places, if I really, really want to go, I find a way to go, but I do need some kind of reason. I don't really have a reason to go to Edinburgh yet, but I'm trying. I also like Scotch, so that's really just the reason why I want to go.
Oh, hey, where's your funding come from for your business for SAG
Oh,
Indie?
excellent question. There's a company. So every time you pay an actor, money goes into pension and health. And pension and health companies are basically insurance and bean counters, accountants kind of thing. They're not a part of SAG after they are their own thing. Out of the money that goes into pension and health, some amount drops down into a fund that they control. And that fund, which is called the Industry Advancement Cooperative Fund, is granted out to organizations that this board of directors feels to companies that they feel enhance the industry. And that's kind of the primary mandate is that you have to be something that is of service to the industry. So I get my funding 100% from the IACF, while the vast majority of the other people who get funding from them only get it in part. And the ICF, the board is literally created out of 50% producers and 50% of SAG-AFTRA execs. So it's its own weird little thing. But that's why I'm completely neutral, is that 50% of my board are producers and 50% of SAG-AFTRA, so I don't favor either side. I just do my job.
So has the fund been affected with less productions last year?
Well, I mean, you ask me again in about a month because my funding is going up for vote soon. Last year it affected us. It didn't. It affected us in that we slashed budgets quite a lot, and the funding changed so that they only funded 6 months at a time. Um, I am in a great position in that when I'm successful, more people make movies, more money goes into the fund. So in that respect, I had a certain level of comfort, but even then, I slashed and burned budgets. I think I had to do 4 different versions of my budget before it was all done. And now this year, I am at least hopeful that my funding will be what I ask it to be, but I really won't know.
Great. Lillian, you haven't had a chance to ask anything. Did you have anything you wanted to?
No, I am from Argentina, and I have seen a couple of films. I have been here in the States for many, many years, but I really enjoy foreign movies. So, do you have any opinions, or do you have any director in mind that you like the most, or do you have any favorite one?
Favorite foreign films.
Yeah. Now, I
Uh,
already mentioned mine, which is Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I am a massive fan of Jean-Pierre Jeunet. His films are incredible. If you haven't seen Micmacs or Amelie or
Yeah,
Young and
like the casting.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't like Amelie. I mean, that's just lovely. But my favorite film, and it's been a while, so I'm not gonna be able to pull the name, but it's called oh, it's Penelope. Oh, I can't believe that I'm just gonna blank on it because I'm Girl of My Dreams.
I could just name more
Title.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet films while we wait.
No,
So
the English title is Girl of My Dreams. It's out of Spain, and Penelope Cruz was very young in it, and I just can't pull the name out of the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, foreign films in general are wonderful, and I will watch them. I think people are in general pretty lazy and don't want to read subtitles, but it's silly. And if you can read, it's a ridiculous idea that you won't. So I think everybody should make a point to see some. You don't. They're all from every region known to mankind. Uh, I'm trying to think of the one I loved from Poland 2 years ago. Black and white. It's like Anya, Anka.
we just did a screening a couple of weeks ago of all of the Oscar-nominated short films at our theater here, and there were a bunch of really great foreign films, particularly in animation this year,
Yeah.
were nominated. Um, Yes People was from Iceland. Opera was from South Korea. Trying to think of what the other ones were. David, did you have a favorite from the animated films?
Yeah. One that won. Just in case I love you.
Oh yeah, if anything happens, I love you.
If
That
anything happens, yeah,
yeah.
that's one of the few I saw because it was in a festival I was on the jury of. But yeah, so foreign film is always great, but I always am a little worried that we're just going to steal it and remake it into a worse version,
Yes, very true. And that
like
happens
Downhill.
way too often.
That's our MO. Um, if that's it, I'm gonna go join my family for a dinner.
Darrien, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate all of the advice and information. This was fantastic. On behalf of everyone freezing our ass off here at the Falls Tap House, and for those sitting at the comfort of home, thank you very much for the information, and maybe we'll see you down the line again sometime. Oh,
Absolutely, it was nice to meet you all.
Hey,
Thank you.
Klamath Falls September is a lot better than Alaska in February.
So you say, but they all lie. You never know. You might just see me in September.
well, I'll keep cluing you in on our schedule as things come together. We may need an awards judge too if you're willing to watch some films if you're stuck at home.
Well,
So
all righty. Well, take care, everybody. It was nice to meet you all.
thank you, Darrien and Court, Lori, Joyce, and Michael. Thank you for joining us online, and we'll do this the first Thursday of June. So, see everybody then.
Okay.
Dues are $25.
Are you ever gonna call?
It's the exact same rate that it's been before.
Are you ever gonna call Charles Andrew Nelson Darth Vader?
Um, I thought, or what was it a different one? I thought that he passed away.
No, no, that was David Prowse.
Oh, David Prowse. Okay.
Andy Nelson.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Andy took over for David when he retired.
This is the Klamath Freedom Celebration.
I- I talk to Doug often, so I'm very familiar.
Some filmmakers might want to come out and get some stock footage of the fireworks,
Mhm.
parade, the ball games. But
I usually film it for the Herald and News.
yeah,
So I always do the parade and other aspects of it. So
yeah, I got that from Doug.
Yep. Yep. I have not heard from Wayne in a couple of weeks or like a month or two. He's supposed to be on our board of directors. Oh, what happened?
I don't know what it was. He was sick.
Okay. Well, that would explain then why he hasn't been attending our board of directors meeting. Because people have been asking